All right, welcome everybody to another live stream, sort of test on the Bands of Time Prophetico. Hello, Matthew, we got you. Hello, Matthew.
Yes. I forgot to unmute my mic. Sorry, Bry. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Prophetico, baby. Excursions into all things prophetic. Have no idea what we're doing, but hey, we're going to have fun doing it. That's for sure. You labeled this current events, right, Bry?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
All right. So, as far as it goes today, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't really had a chance to look at the news and didn't talk too much about the news. The only thing we did look at was what's going on in the heavens right now as we speak. So we're going to be trying some new things. So I guess you might as well go ahead and take a look at my face, albeit as painful as that might be. But Brian and I was just talking about just the layout for celestial symbology just tonight. It's off the charts when you look into the heavens. And Brian has booted in to our broadcasting software. He was able to label one of his astronomy programs as a game, so it was able to be jacked right into our stream. So we're going to be taking a look at that here in just a second as soon as Brian gets ready to do it. But the current events are obviously by far and wide measure outside of the realm of normalcy. We've just covered so much news just in the past few shows that we've done. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got world leaders saying that it's game on for World War III. There's been a rather entertaining, probably the most entertaining alternative news source. I'm not going to mention his name, but he put out an emergency Facebook video that one of our brothers and sisters sent to me, so I did take a look at it. And it was interesting enough that I sent it to the Bry. And he took a look at it. It's very alarming as far as he goes, although he's quite the actor. So he is known for his antics, of course, even putting on a Joker face and doing a broadcast. So it's kind of hard not to take anything that he says without a grain of salt. But it was rather interesting that he was talking out and pointing out some of the very things that Brian and I were already talking about in private. And it disturbs me that we're not the only ones seeing what's going on. Just last night we did a bang-up broadcast on the show. There were other special guests. Rabbi Bugsy, of course, Rabbi Michael Bug of Blogspot. He's normally the one that does the show with the Brian and I on Thursday nights on the Iron Show on the Fringe Radio Network. And then we had another new broadcaster that has created a show, Cast 'em Off Ministries. His name's Brandon. And we had Counselor Mark on there as well, just for a shot of good medicine in the side. But we got to talking about some things on that broadcast that I've already received several correspondences for that today. I haven't had a chance to read them. I mean, as soon as I got home, I was completely wiped out. And then I had to go get my children from a different town because they have the contract to clean a church there. So by the time I got set down, the Brian and I was already wanting to do stuff. So it's been rather a quick evening, but I was able to at least open up the email and look at some of the, you know how they have some of the descriptions as you scroll down the emails. So I saw that we've already got correspondence coming in from last night's show, and I couldn't even tell you how the show finished off. I had to get up at 5 o'clock this morning, so I had to leave that broadcast early. So I have no idea how it finished off, but you know, we get to talking about things, and there's people even on our private circle today on the social networking site that was asking strange questions because they're newbies, especially the little brown man, and he knows who I'm talking about. Ask a question to one of our sisters. Well, how do you know there's 432,000 princes? That's pretty amazing that he would be in the game this long and not realize that, oh my goodness, all of the information that the Brian and I have given over the past I don't know 4 or 5 years now, Brian. Once you understand the circle of the Earth and why they have 360 degrees in the circle instead of the proper calculation, it's pretty interesting and pretty funny. But this is going to be a good test broadcast again tonight, just to see if you get my video correctly with the software that Brian has available, to see if my voice lines up with the video, and Brian does as well. So we're just going to be talking about a lot of things tonight, probably random things. It's a good time for you to peer into the private conversations of the Brian and I. Because we talk about a whole lot of things, and there's some things I want to discuss with him privately that we're just going to do right here. No better place to do it. So, Brian, why don't you jump in here? And if you have looked at the news today, listen, we should at least try to follow the format of the title for this show. So, what have you seen in the news today? And I will flick over to the icon screen and try to get that timeline finished as you're talking, Bri.
Yeah, well, right now we're having we may be having some issues here. It's looking like the live stream itself is not working correctly.
Really?
Let's see something.
Okay, well, I'll just be quiet and sit here and try to finish this picture while you work on it.
Yeah, sorry about this, folks. This is like a whole new realm for us here. Okay, well, if I apparently it's still working on the link, which I am have on Facebook, but for some reason YouTube is just glitching out. All right, let's just get in here and hope that this is somehow still working, folks. At least recording it to the hard drive, so if there's problems, I missed the beginning, so we will have to figure out how to fix that if I have to indeed reload it. Now, Matthew did want to have this in real quick. All right, Matthew had mentioned that we have some pretty interesting things happening here in the heavens above our head as we speak. Now, what I'm waiting for... Okay, that is showing correctly. Man. Yes, once we have this narrowed down, folks, it'll be a lot more professional, so just bear with us here. Yes, but let's see here. Let me go over to Starry Night so I can bring this into a little bit more clarity here. Um, see here. Bring this in just a little bit more. I'll bring that into a little more clarity here so people can see what we have going on here with the planets just in this lineup alone. I mean, we've got Jupiter sitting here. We got straight across the moon. Moving forward, we have Mars. Then we have Venus. And I turned on Comet Catalina, and I did that on purpose. That comet went perihelion the very same day that in uh, where Israel had called for that prayer worldwide. And, so that was something that I had really taken into consideration as being pretty darn important. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Bring in Ophiuchus, it's center itself. A little new to using this program too, folks, so bear with me again on that. If we look at Ophiuchus here on top of it, check out how we've got Mercury sitting there right there on the left foot, and then we have the sun right underneath the heel, and then factor in the fact that we've got Saturn sitting on the right foot. And this is, rather amazing. And all considering the placement here of the sun, this tends to bring in and remind me of some of the work that I've been reading over from Graham Hancock's newest book. And he points out something that's rather amazing when you stop and consider the ramifications of the work of another person that he quotes from, that was from a paper that he published, and he didn't even go back and look at it until something continued to sort of nag at him that he needed to go and look at this work, not knowing why. And what this paper had pointed out that this man wrote up was that he believed that Göbekli Tepe, what was encoded on there astronomically, actually ties in to this point in history that we are living in right now as we speak, most specifically a string of the winter solstices. Now everybody can, recalls the whole December 21st, 2012 event that, many to this day kind of chuckle about and so forth and say it went off with a bang, nothing happened, and on down the line. But this is a place where a stark clarity and understanding of what actually transpired and what was meant by the restarting of the clock, so to say, within the Mayan cosmology, is that they were essentially saying we were moving into a new age. But as we move into this new age, or as, in the Greek term, aeon, things were going to be rough. And, that was their point where they singled out the new starting point. Matthew and I have talked about this at length. There's some other colleagues of ours that I've talked to in the past about this as well. We'd look at some of these winter solstices over the years. If you hit the rewind button and go back to December 21st of 2010, we had that night, we had an eclipse, a lunar eclipse that happened right up in the constellation of Orion. And that, well, people that have listened to us before know that was the day that kind of rattled my cage and then sort of kind of led to everything that Matthew and I are doing now with the broadcast. Some very peculiar things happened on December 21st of 2010. That night, as that eclipse was taking place, the earthquake monitors worldwide began to go off. And yet there was no discernible earthquake that could be found anywhere on the planet. That this day is something that has baffled me. I have suspicions as to what the cause of that was, and I'm suspecting it had something cosmic ramifications that are a little bit above at least my pay grade. And one other interesting thing that I had found back at least a couple, good 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago, because we've been at this now for going on about 5 years, 4 to 5 years here now. So at one point in time, I had decided to do a little measurement with the nautical miles. Now, let me point out to everybody here why the nautical miles are so important. When we are dealing with nautical miles, we are dealing with the measurement itself of the planet. And you have to understand on top of this that distance equals time. Now, when we stop and consider, when we look at the nautical miles themselves, we have a number of 21,600. Now, when you take this on top of it into the astronomical measurements as far as determining how the planets move through each constellation, how, the very equinoxes and solstices line up when we start a new age as we move into a new constellation. This is all, it's called a period of precession. And sorry, I'm having a pop-up with dropped frames are coming up on our broadcast here, and it gave me a thing to fix it, and now it's gone. Yep, and we're losing the stream. Let me try to go back to something else here to see if that at least clears it. Darn it. It looks like it picked that up again. There's probably something running here that's a little bit too intensive. Nonetheless, going back to where I was at, this is called precession, and these exact same measurements that are used within the nautical miles measure the planet, degrees, everything on down the line. They are one and the same. As each other. Nonetheless, if you look at David Flynn's work, Temple at the Center of Time, you'll get a much more understanding out of this. Going back to what I was saying, the nautical mile measurement that I had come up with at that point in time ended up being 2,010 nautical miles to Stonehenge. And when you looked at where that eclipse transpired as it was coming up over the horizon, over the top of Stonehenge, the eclipse itself was right in the exact same direction that pointed to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Why don't you jump in here, Matthew? I'm over to you. I got a read in the background here what might be causing this problem. Skype
Okay.
here.
Yep, I can jump in here real quick. Let's do this. Let's do this. While Brian's checking things out, this is something I was going to mention to the Bri. This word here that we are looking at in the Greek. I'm looking here at the Bible source code. You'll take note that G5216, human, is of you or concerning you, about you. And it comes up in, of course, both discourses that include Matthew 24 and Luke 21. For the instances, we're just going to go up there and look at them really quick. It's in verse 20, and it shows up right here. I've got it highlighted for you. We'll switch over to the New American Standard Bible so you can read it. But pray that your flight will not be in the winter or on a Sabbath. It is very important that right here, yours is defined alphanumerically as 1,290, pointing you to the simple fact that this is going to happen during the 1,290 days. It's also in verse 42. Therefore, be on the alert, for you do not know which day your Lord, your Lord is coming. That's 1,290 alphanumerical calculation. When we shoot on over to the sister chapter of Luke 21, you'll take note that it's here several times as well. We go to the first instance in the Editto Regia, verse 14. So make up your minds not to prepare beforehand to defend yourselves. Verse 16, but you will be betrayed even by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. Verse 18, yet not a hair of your head will perish. 19, as you can see, it's all over the place here. By your endurance, you will gain your lives. Now, it's very important that it would be right here, literally encoding to you that your endurance would come from the 1,290 days. Verse 28, of course, it speaks of the return of Christ. But when these things begin to take place, strengthen up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Amazing that these encodations would be here. Verse 34, be on guard so that your hearts will not be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and worries of life. The day will not come on you suddenly like a trap or a snare. There in the Greek, by the way, pegis. So it's pretty important that in these two chapters you have this word for your, as if he's defining for you that the 1,290 days is the time of your testing when these things are going to take place. So it's pretty amazing that alphanumerical encodation would be there. And that's what I was going to show Brian before we decided to go live. But all the more fun. I hope my software is working properly, that Brian has set up for me. I can only hope.
That's just it. I didn't see any of your, nothing's changed on your screen. Is your camera even on?
Well, yeah, it's on. I never turned it off. Why would I have turned it off? Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, there was not one thing came into your stream. Did you switch it in the software? Okay, yep, make sure you just minimize everything else down.
That's not even funny. So they didn't see anything that I showed. Wow, what a loser.
Well, go back in and show it again. It's not going to hurt anything. As everybody, you got to bear with us here. This is, yeah.
I'm not going to go through that again.
Well, just roll them through. I'm still over here fixing stuff, so.
All right, I will show everybody really quickly the verses in question in the two magnifying chapters, Matthew 24. Here, I'll show it to you in the Editto Regia, the original word. It is here. This is the word we're looking at, G5216. It is the representation of yours in these verses. So verse 20, verse 42, and the accompanying chapter in Luke 21. It's there it's in 14, 16, 18, 19, 28, and 34. So you might want to take a look at that if you can. If you're wondering what setup I'm using here, this is the one that I've provided, the links I've provided on thebiblesourcecode.com. Just go over there and you can see exactly. You can set up your Bible software just like I have. But you can take this word that equals for your, you can see that it is 1,032 times this exact spelling in the Septuagint. And we'll go down here to the New Testament so you can see the Didoregia. It is in a total of 503 verses. Malachi is just replete with it, and Haggai. But ladies and gentlemen, this is all over the prophetic text, and it's pretty interesting where it starts. Pretty interesting indeed. We'll switch over here to the Britons. For God knew that in whatever day ye should eat of it, your eyes would be opened, and that ye would be as gods, knowing good and evil. Good stuff that it would start right there and where it finishes. Let's just go to the last time this exact alphanumerical equation is in the Bible source code. It's in Revelation 22:21. The grace of the Lord Jesus be with all. Amen. Very important that it's right here, right in this sequence. You'll see it right there. So, if you'd like to get to the Bible source code and the resources that I use, just go to thebiblesourcecode.com, and I have on there a layout and instructions showing you everything that pertains to, hey, let's try it. This. Please take note, ladies and gentlemen, that the end time is divided into three phases. The three phases of time. At first, you have the 1,290 days, and then time goes topsy-turvy. And then we are all taken on Operation Eagle's Wings to a place that's been prepared for us, where we will be protected for 1,260 days. So this is a very elementary timeline. Maybe I can make it go bigger, maybe not too much bigger, but I was going to add some things here so everybody knows what was going on. For instance, what is the duration of time for the first 1,290 days? Time is normal during the 1,290 days, both sidereally and the hours. So we'll still have 24 hours and a 365 day year. And when time goes topsy-turvy, neither the day nor the hour will have a time as we are being pulled, pushed, we're being sped up in our rotation. Literally, the war is going to be in the heavens over our heads when you're speaking about astronomically. The planets are going to move from their courses. Of course, the sign of the Son of Man is going to leave his mornings and start his approach inward, just like is defined by the Grand Tech model, which incorporates the Nice model, of course. So you might want to check NASA for those terms, because it is going to happen and you're going to see it happen. But this is all going to take time. And unfortunately, time has no duration here. We know from encodations of the Bible that this is referred to as 10 days It's referred to as 35 days. It's referred to as 5 months. It's also referred to as 150 days. So time cannot be measured here. After that event, Michael, of course, wins in his war as Satan tries to go back up Jacob's ladder once he's been caught in a snare. The good angels will be along to fetch us and take us to the end of the heavens and the end of the earth, there at the tabernacle of David, where God himself has prepared a place for us. We will stay there for 1,260 days. At the end of that, the return of Christ, of course. Now, that's a very, very quick overview. Fantastic amount of information contained in the Bible about these three sets of time in the end of days. So I'm going to try to make this into an icon and make it really simple so that you get that instead of this all the time, which is, yeah, that's kind of cool, but it's boring. So I'm going to start, doing these. So as I'm talking or something like that, or Brian's talking, you'll have informational video aids to help in your biblification process. So I love impromptu stuff, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed the little discourse there on the encodation for 1290 in Matthew 24 and Luke chapter 21. Very important that you understand that Matthew 24 is true, and it's going to come true. Most Christians reject that from their dispensational teaching. However, just take note of history, and it loudly screams to yourself of isochronal events, just like the book of Ecclesiastes loudly declares. So, Brian, how is the broadcast progressing? I think I might even try another one.
Well, we've been things seem to be sorted out. I had your Skype, I think, resized, so I had to correct that.
Really?
Yeah, so it wasn't bringing in the picture correctly, but I got it in there at the last bit. So, yes, everybody, yeah, you gotta love that.
Well, you're probably going to love me because I'm probably going to crash it, but okay, hey, why not?
Well,
Um,
yeah, I think my camera is what was getting at, was giving drop frames for some reason, and your camera at one point in time, and here we go again, we're losing. The stream was refreshing itself, so I'm gonna have to alter a few settings in the upload category. I still got to figure out how some of this software works. Was a rather interesting little article that came in, and let me turn my video back on here so you can take a look at this. Up here, I'm actually going to send you the link so you can look at this from last night. And just going back to what I was saying on top of it, previously there with what we looked at out of my astronomy program, is, the placement of that sun was altogether really quite interesting. And I guess it's going to be easiest. I will have to go in and find that hopefully I captured it here. And guess what? Of course I didn't keep it. Let's get to it here fast. I have it archived in links on. All right, here we go. And this is where we can stretch into where I'm going with. That's a little bit easier. Matthew, there was another find last night that they just released into the public. This is going to take this in a whole new realm.
Really?
Oh yeah. Now let me bring this up. Okay, that's all working correctly. And I've got my camera on. Hopefully you can see that there, Matthew.
Let me switch over there. Yep, I see it just fine, bro.
Well, we had talked about this last night on air, and, let me try to zoom this in so we can get a better look at just this photo in itself. Spanning into my Skype, or not Skype, into my software here. Problem, I can try reading mode, but 90% of the time it nukes the picture. Up. Seriously, you really want to work? Couple more notches. If everybody takes note of this, this story was just released a couple of days ago. This is a seal impression of King Hezekiah unearthed in Jerusalem. Now, I sort of want to take note of what's taking place there in the. See that there appears to be almost a set of vulture wings with a sphere in the middle, and then we have 1, 2, 3, and then we have another 3 on top. Okay, what we're looking at there, to be quite honest, I would say is the axis and the 4 corners of the Earth. Now, it's important that I'm pointing out this vulture at this moment. Now, as you can see, and luckily I think my cursor's been still captured here. It's out.
Yeah, it is. I can see your cursor.
Yep. Now, one of the points where I was going with this, as far as Gobekli Tepe is concerned. Now, the person that the work that Graham had published in the past that did the work on this, and Graham sat down and he confirmed this himself. The ancient depictions of the constellation of Sagittarius many times were rendered, so to say, as a vulture. And how many different cultures did we have some sort of winged deity being represented with a sphere right in the middle? Now, as we brought up last night, my first impression upon seeing this very seal, that this had every single thing to do with the sun moving across Ahaz's steps, where time reset itself by a degree or an ascent of 7, or 10, I'm sorry. Now, I mean, what's your take on this one, Matthew? Because we brought this up very slightly on the program last night, but we really did not go into the depth that I would have liked to have went with this.
Well, I got a picture of it. That was the normal. It was just an outline, a pictorial outline of it. And just looking at it, I saw that the two symbols that represent life there, they're both flanking it, of course, with spheres elongated on top. And I Took note that that represented 10. There was 10 lines there, 10 different movements of the axis right there, segmented 10 different ways. There's lines, 3 lines from the bottom of the sphere with small globes on them with the exact same thing on the top. And then the 2 symbols from life, for life flanking it left and right, which some people, describe as a looped cross. So I immediately saw that. I mean, I just counted like I would have done if I was in the first grade. I just counted the spheres and got 10 spheres with axes there. So the 2 signs for life was very intriguing to me because you had one set of axes down and one across, representing, of course, the equator and the axis of the planet. And that during said event, the Earth would get out of shape, which is exactly what's going to happen. Of course, the Bible describes to us that in Isaiah chapter 24 that it will be rent in two. And when you look to the antipode to the black stone on this planet, Bri, you can plainly see there at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean the trench where God's going to rip us so that we don't fly apart. And people don't realize that it's the only way we could survive said event. So that's what immediately jumped out to me. And Brian, you know full well that I went to bed. I got up at 5 this morning. I didn't get home until 6:30, and it wasn't 10 minutes later I had to go pick the kids up. Then I came home and ate, and I'm on here with you. So I haven't really had time to look at it in depth. Of course, I didn't have to. I just had to see it. But I saw plainly that there were other things there that were probably going to present themselves. So I didn't know that Sagittarius had been represented as a vulture. That puts a whole different twist on things. I'd like to hear what you got to say about it, because I don't know no more than the rest of the listeners do right now. I have no idea what you're going to share. Have no idea. So you've obviously had some time to look at this, I guess. So what's your take on it, Bri?
My take on it is, I don't know at this stage. I mean, quite literally, there's just been rather a plethora of new information coming across my desk, so to say. Um, just certain things that I had not considered buried realms within the ancient astronomy. This is something I have studied very deeply multiple times here over the course of the last 4 or 5 odd years. And one thing you do come to learn and understand is that multiple cultures have represented the constellations in varied ways. So
Right.
when we begin to look at for instance, the ancient Sumerian, which is, 99.9% of the time is where everybody points as being the absolute first civilization, see some of these things being drawn into that culture. And this is one of the closest links they were able to find when they looked into this was, yes, indeed, we had these wings, and this disc was represented in that culture. Yet when you begin to break it down as that image itself sort of transformed through time. Well, I know everybody wants to, use the atypical Ahura Mazda, but we can kind of break it down to the reality. Looking at Asher.
That's right. You're looking at Asher in every way, shape, or form. That's Asher. But Bri, I'm not going to lie to everybody. I mean, there's no purpose for me to do that. Brian, you know full well what I did. with Prof. Williams when I was studying the old Bibliodiciacy. Brian, I've never seen Asher's wings turn down. Not ever. Um, so I've got some problems with that, Bry. There's no reason for me to mince words. Why is his wings turned down? And why does this iconography represent the axis of the Earth in 10 different positions? That's pretty amazing when you realize that, yeah, you're thinking, of course, that the two anchorus symbols that flanks it left and right, well, no, that's representing the same thing. No, it's not. That's where it was before or when the event happened and when the event finished. The 6 phases in between was when time was topsy-turvy, so they was magnifying to you where the axis and the equator was when it started, where the axis and the equator was when it finished. So there's actually 2 different steps there, clearly. You obviously had 3 different positions, top and bottom. That would be during the day, and 3 during the night, as different points on this planet. You have to realize, ladies and gentlemen, that this is the perfect iconography to represent an event all over the planet, constituting different time zones. It's the perfect way to do that. So it's disturbing for me just to look at, because I've never seen iconography like this before in all of my studies. So it really makes you wonder, Brian, what, and of course the Hebrew script on it. I haven't even looked at it yet. I really have been leery to look at it, Brian. I don't know if @bash encoding is used there. I don't know if Asher's name is there. I don't know. I haven't looked at it yet, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's magnificently important that we're able to take a look at this. I don't know. I do know we need to look at it further. I do know that. We should look at it further. But I just have not had the time as of yet to do so.
Well, and yeah, no kidding. It's when you initially look straight at this. Let me go back over here. I try to bring the image in real quick. Throw into the Skype side of the. If you look at this text that's in here, that to me looks like ancient cuneiform. So, I'm by no means any kind of expert on these things, but I mean, this just kind of makes me wonder what's going on here with the text. I have not had enough time to completely analyze this and look it over. Once again, we have the old Ankh on the right-hand side. So there's just something going on here. And, this image is very peculiar. And, as you had stated, you've got the... This begins to make me wonder. This is something we have spoken about in the past. As far as... How do I state this? Where the eagle is... carcasses, there the eagles will be gathered. Translations decided to use vulture.
Right.
That indeed is the first thing that comes back to my mind here. So it's just too much of this going on with this one.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it forces your mind to think about that. It really does. And we've talked about these constellations so many times, and we really do need to get some of these, Arthurs on. I mean, we really do. But I I don't know what to say. I'm real hesitant to say anything. I know something is obviously and overtly there. That it would be found today. We finally have a representation of Asher with downturned wings. I don't know what to say. I do know this. Um, that especially the Magi of the day, they would have been able to figure and calculate exactly what happened that day. And they would have been able to realize that, well, we're going to have to put a parenthesis on the timeline because they had a reckoning of time itself, Brian. So once things happened with rotation, axis orientation, you can't use a stopwatch anymore. You can't keep time. You cannot keep time because time in of itself is a synchronous event. It is synchronicity. If you don't have synchronicity with the ground and other celestial objects, you can't keep time. I mean, you can only progress with the standard of 60 seconds per minute based on how fast this planet revolves. That determines how many seconds are in a minute. Once you alter those parameters, Brian, now look, you don't have to alter the speed of your RPMs or the number of RPMs that this planet revolves per second, Brian. No, you don't. All you have to do is change the dimensions of the Earth to bigger, and guess what? Your day's going to be longer because you've increased your surface area. It's just like using a different gear on a 10-speed bike. Okay? The bigger gear that you use, of course, the faster your rear tire will go, and you'll go faster, even though it's harder to pedal. So you don't have to change your RPMs. You do not have to change the revolutions per minute to change time. All you have to do is alter the dimensions of the planet, either bigger or smaller. If you make the planet just a little bit smaller, Brian, time speeds up. Okay, there's going to be more time. If you make it bigger, time by perception is going to slow down. And people don't realize this, Brian. They don't understand that the Earth and time works just like a 10-speed bike. You don't have to just change the RPMs, although you can. But the best way to accomplish a differentiation in time is by changing the dimensions. That's the best, easiest physical way to do it. That is plain and simple mechanical engineering is what it is. So now everybody probably realizes why I saw what I saw. I saw exactly what the Magi would do. And not just the Magi there from Babylon that came, of course, to see the babe Jesus. We're talking about this group that was employed by all governments at the time. All governments employed them at the time. Ladies and gentlemen, where do you think you have the knowledge of the ghost comet that was there for the birth, of course, the other birth in the New Testament with so much importance? you have to realize that even the Chinese were doing this. All governments on the planet had magi to study the heavens and the synchronicity of isochronal eschatology as they understood it. So, with that in mind, Brian, you look at this, it's clearly representing how it is that everybody didn't die. Okay, take note, ladies and gentlemen. What this seal represents is that God didn't do whatever he did all at once. He did it in jerks, so we wouldn't fly apart at the seams. And people don't understand that, ladies and gentlemen, if he wanted to kill us, uh, he just would have had this event happen all in one phase. But he clearly did not do that based on this iconography. He did it in 10 jerks, okay, before the mission was accomplished. So, Brian, your thoughts on that? I know it's hard for some people to understand uh, mechanical engineering, but surely people understand a 10-speed bicycle. When you want to go faster, you just switch up to a bigger gear on the crank and a smaller gear on the wheel, and it's harder to crank, but you'll go faster. Your thoughts on that, Bud?
Well, that's precisely how it works. I mean, that's the simplest way of explaining it. I don't really know any other way to really get that into clarity for everybody here. I'm still over here trying to adjust things, seeing if I maybe knock down the resolution of your Skype and all that, if maybe it'll fix all this. Breaking up your camera and all that good stuff.
I can go to a lower resolution as well.
No, 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 no. You don't want to change that because when you go to share web pages, it's not going to work right.
Okay.
So I'm just going with a half size here to see if this that actually let me center this. Center it. Good fun. We knew there was going to be things to iron out still, but nonetheless, we are definitely moving into a whole new realm here as far as being able to stream live. So it's just a matter of getting the kinks ironed out so that this works correctly as it should. But, I'm glad that you did bring up, because, I mean, essentially this is where this kind of leads, and I guess everybody is full well aware that I've been doing some extensive work concerning the Magi that will definitely be coming up in a multitude of circles once again as we approach the holidays here. And that's what this is really, a lot of this work has just so much encompassed that entire circumstance. Magi, who they are, what was this sign, the actual birth, Christ, when was the actual time of the crucifixion. See, everybody, there's a whole lot more. And I don't know that people are going to be too pleased with some of our answers once they realize the stark thing that definitely came to my attention as we sat down and looked over the dates, looked over the timing coming up in the book of Daniel, as far as the 62 weeks. I guess it's maybe time to bring that into stark clarity again, everybody. Right there in the book of Daniel, everything you need to know is encoded within the mathematics, but the first thing that has to be removed from your mind is that infamous number where everybody says, well, they tend to add the 7 onto the 62 weeks, and that's not even remotely close to how things are supposed to work. And that's been one of the hugest mistakes that has thrown everybody's little infamous timelines into absolute and complete disarray. So everybody understand, and I can pull this up here in a minute because luckily Matthew had posted that document itself to his website, so I'll just pull it up so people can look at the math themselves. That's going to give you a precise time. It's encoded in the mathematics. One of the other big things that I've noticed time after time again is the assumption that when Cyrus set forth a decree, well, they try to lock that into when Cyrus began to rule. And something that really needs to come into stark clarity here is people have to understand the very fact that Cyrus's campaigns were a bit on the lengthy side as the Persian Empire came into power. As the power shift happened between, because we have it rolled into one where we have the Medians and the Persians brought into the equation. Now, everybody has probably heard me state this multiple times. For new viewers that have not, I'll just point something out here quickly. You will come to find out that the Kurdish people themselves are also what we would refer to in historical terms and in the Bible, they are the Medes. So when we have current situations in the news right now where the Kurds are everywhere, everybody, you have to understand, prophetically speaking, isochronally speaking, what we mean when we use that term is that which has been is that which will be. God designed time to repeat itself. So we can always see these shadows and silhouettes when we look at historical events and we look at what we're seeing presently. So I hope that helps people to understand why it is that we use that term isochronal. So we have to understand, once again, like I said, this was something that obviously they did not want to be in the public eye. Now you go over to the Wikipedia site and pull up Kurds right there in broad daylight. It states flat out they are the ancient Medes. The Kurdish people themselves even say that they're the Medes. Now we have to realize that we had the Medes come into power, and then we had the Persians come into power. And Cyrus's campaigns were fairly lengthy. You can get a very great understanding from the writings of Herodotus. He goes through and he details as much as he can in his own terminology, in his own way, everything that needs to be known. So this really helps to pull that all together in everybody's minds when we start to talk about this quote-unquote timeline. Well, the first huge mistake here, once again, is when we've thrown that word line in the equation for a timeline. Okay, everybody, take note. It's, I guess, ironic that the Bands of Time photo that I use for pretty much everything is a clock. Now, take a look at that clock. It goes in a circle. Time has always worked in revolutions. It has always worked in a circle. And if you even look at the clock itself, there are cogs, there are gears. That is how time works. So now when we have people that have set out this quote-unquote end time timeline, well, already we've begun to run into problems. People to understand when the birth of Messiah was, correct understanding of Daniel 9 has to come into place. Without that, there's just everything's going to get thrown into disarray. Where this ends up going is, we did a broadcast last week through Google Hangouts. We gave it a rather humorous name, and we had talked about some of the recent research that I had come across concerning the Scythian and their connection to the infamous Magi of the Bible. Now, this equation is a lot more in depth and quite a bit bigger than we're even going to even attempt to cover in a test broadcast like this, because with all the quality issues, I'd prefer that presentation is top notch. Many times I have also brought up the Sabian. Sabian are a major portion of this equation. when you look at the Sabian that inhabited Haran, for instance, they have always been known as, some will refer to them as a quote unquote star cult. And whatever terminology people want to use, I guess that's all irrelevant. At the end of the day, they were astronomers. And they were pretty much master astronomers. And a lot, very little as far as historical works have come down throughout the ages. By the sounds of it, there is a couple of books that have been suspected to be writings of the Sabians. It's really complex. And then on top of it, on the other side of the world, not necessarily the other side of the world, what we would refer to as the land of the Queen of the South. And this would be Yemen, where you have another Saba. And this would be the Sabian again. And as I can see, Matthew, you are pulling in image over there. I'm going to wait for it to clear itself up, and I can pull that in if you want me to. Let me see what happens here. Because I shrunk your Skype, I don't know if that's doing something or not. Okay, guess what? It's coming in absolutely perfect, even though on my screen it looks like rubbish. Alright, as you can see here, Matthew's got up a illustration, which will be helpful in explaining this if you want to go in and go ahead and bring that in and explain it while I get something prepped in the background here myself. Matthew?
Yes, as soon as I turn my microphone on. Boy, I'm just on it today, aren't I, Brian?
I know how that goes.
Yeah, on this timeline, the purpose of this video aid is so people can understand time itself during the end days, as they're called. Because time will progress in three different fashions. All centered and based around, of course, the bride-to-be. She's not the bride yet until the return of Christ. So that's why she's referred to in Revelation chapter 12 as the woman. But here you see that the end of the 1,290 days is the sixth seal event horizon. That is the great day of he who sitteth upon the throne. He rides the cloud to Mount Paran. So that is what ends 24-hour days and 365.24 day years. It's over at that event. That's when time goes topsy-turvy. That's when there's war in heaven. That's literally speaking when the sign of the Son of Man will once again do his grand tack. Please look at NASA for that. It also incorporates and is the answer to the Nice model, which Brian and I did an episode on the Nice model. And not only has NASA confirmed that, but it's also incorporated it into the grand tack model for the sign of the Son of Man. But as these things happen, the Bible makes this interlude of time when there's war in heaven that's physically being drawn out as things leave their courses, their proper procession, so to speak. And we begin to wobble. We begin to speed up in our orbit around the sun. We begin to change our revolutions per minute. All of these things mimic, of course, the Exodus, as you can plainly see here. So time topsy-turvy is defined in the Bible as far as the flood went It says it's 5 months. It says that it's 150 days, even though that's physically impossible on our calendar. It calls it 10 days. It also is referred to as 35 days. It's the difference between the 1,290 and the 1,335 days. So it's repeatedly referred to as different times. So it's during this time that the sixth trumpet takes place, the fifth trumpet. We, of course, get the Exodus angel and the two witnesses. When time locks back in place at the seventh trumpet event, 1/3 of the day has been struck. That means we'll only have 16 hours in one day. We're also told that this duration is 42 months, letting you know that we have gone to a 360-day year. Now, I have done a couple of these. This one here is the same exact time duration, but I've divided it up differently so you can know the location of course, Primus Numerus, or the Mosheim. So it's a little bit different. It's a whole lot. It has a whole lot of information, so you can understand why you can't do this on one pictorial representation. There's too much information. You have to see it from different perspectives, because that's exactly what the book of Revelation is doing. He's giving you information differently. Now, here is a fairly simple way to understand the duration in the heavens as seen by the angel Gabriel. You'll take note that from the time that things would go array in the promised land and they would try to divide the land, there would be 2,300 days. You can see here why God did that. It's pretty important that you realize that this is divided into a segment of 1,010 days, which is a reference to the slaughter of the innocents of 2 years and under. And you can see why here. You have 144 weeks. Then it's game on. And then you have an interlude of a birth cycle. So the first section of the 1,290 days is the quiet before the storm. That lasts for 40 weeks, or birth cycle. Then you have another 144 weeks to have to deal with. And then, of course, the woman flees into the wilderness for the last 40 weeks of that duration of time. So this is saying the exact same thing that the other two said. It's just coming at it in sets of time that you can understand. As far as a birth cycle is concerned. So this is another one that does have one mistake on it. It says here that it goes to 18-hour days. That's incorrect. That's just a typo error. But the same exact timeline again, with the information presented differently, but spot on. The parentheses here is showing you the difference of time before and after when time goes topsy-turvy. And I realize that aids are very important for people's ability to learn. But we can also go down here. I've made one for the circle of the earth, which is magnificently important for you to understand the mechanics of what's going to happen. Here, we'll just do this. Brian and I have talked many times about this. You'll take note that this is the configuration of the circle of the earth. It's encoded throughout the Bible that there's not 360 degrees in a circle. There's 432, and 144 represents 1/3 of that dimension. And please try to understand that this works out exactly to where there is exactly 50 nautical miles in 1 degree. Because there are, of course, 2,160 nautical miles around about the circle of the Earth. But it's encoded into the Bible exactly where the North Pole is going to be. It comes right out and tells you that the apple of his eye is immovable. That means that the Earth can stand up only in one location. And I've provided for you here those exact coordinates, but you'll take note that everything comes into play, biblically speaking here. You have the 72, the 216, 288, which of course now you have a greater understanding as to why David divided up the troops the way he did. And of course, 360. Let's jump over to the next one. Here I give you the dimensions as defined in the Bible, what actually happens. So here you have our dimensions as we are now. This is the royal dimensions. The difference between those biblical calculations is, of course, a seventh is added to it. So that is why, of course, we have to rip there in the Pacific Ocean. If we did not, we, of course, would fly apart. But using the information in the Bible, I've just translated that into geology so you can take a look at it and understand what's going on with the dimensions of his footstool. So anyway, if you'd like to take a look at these, I've been trying to add more, but I'm very limited in time. So they're free here for everybody to look at on Pinterest. Just look it up, the Prophetico. I'm sure you'll be able to find it that way. But let me switch on over to the normal, boring one. Bri?
Well, I want to first just go back in and show people concerning what I was talking about with the Kurds. Something I wanted to do in the past, but let me just so everybody. Oops. Okay, just a moment here. I did not pull up. Love how they pulled that one off. Let me get the
Good stuff, man. Impromptu test. I love this. I'm dead tired. I've been up since 5 o'clock, and Brad's like, well, we got to do a test. Well, all I have to do, he leads me into this for like 40 minutes. He says, well, right here's the live button. We just go live. So I've been completely suckered into this. So yeah, this is hilarious.
Good stuff. Yep. Well, it's just it. We've been wanting to get this test taken. All right, I'm going to leave this highlighted just so everybody can see this. And put it. Okay, for how to do this. Now, as everybody can see here, this is from the Wikipedia for Kurds. And right in here, Kurdish nationalists claim that the Kurds are descended from the Hurrians and the Medes. Hurrians, that takes things into an all more interesting direction. Wow, we're going to have to cover that at some other point. The latter being another Iranian people, and the claimed Median descent is reflected in the words of the Kurdish national anthem, "We are the children of the Medes, which I have highlighted right there for everybody to see. And Kai Khosrow, the Kurdish languages, form a subgroup of the northern Iranian languages. So, there we go. Now, on top of it, I pulled up in that search, there's arguments where between historians saying they're not the Medes, this, that, and the other thing. But yet, look, folks, when the nationalists themselves claim that they are descended from the Medes, all right, you kind of have to stop and just say, yeah, throw all the rest of it aside. Their own
Well,
people
Brian,
are claiming they're descended from them. Go ahead.
Brian, give me a break. No, really, give me a break. I mean, why don't you walk up to an American and ask an American, who are you descended from? You sure ain't going to go ask a Spanish, guy. You're not going to go to Australia and say, hey, do you know who the Americans... Look, ladies and gentlemen, they're telling you. Oh, for Pete's sakes, it's in their national anthem. You don't think they don't know where they come from? I mean, please, ladies and gentlemen, don't insult people's intelligence like that. It is preposterous for you to say anything other than what they themselves say. I think they know their own history, Brian. Don't you? Or, I mean, duh. They're the Medes. Just ask them; they'll tell you. They know that from ancient sources. Their own. It's their own source. So it's preposterous to say anything else. To contradict a people's description of their own beginnings is to publicly admit that you're an idiot. Okay, you're just publicly admitting that you're an idiot. It's just retarded to do that, Bry. So anyway, sorry about that. It just ticks me off when they themselves say they're the Medes. It's in their national anthem, but no, we have all been given a Western education. That's been classical, so we have all truth and knowledge. That is classic. That's just classic. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you saw it right there in broad daylight. Now Brian was able to point it out to you. So now you need to go to the headlines and do a news search for Kurds in the news the past, 30 days. You're looking at the Medes. That's the Medes. That is the Medes. And by the way, just so you know, Iran is Persia. That's Persia. They don't call themselves Iranians. They never did. They call themselves Persians.
Exactly. And I have seen some comments through varied historical I've done that the reason they chose that name Iran had to do with Aryan. I don't know. I guess I could see the correlation. Nonetheless, and I wanted to throw this in quick too on top of it. Because of the fact alone that it brings up Hurrian. Okay, I already knew. Once I see the word Hurrian, we're then dealing with Bible called Haran. Place mentioned in the Bible, Haran is almost universally identified with Haran, an Assyrian name of the Hurrian city whose ruins lie within present-day Turkey. Haran first appears in the book of Genesis as the home of Terah and the latter descendants and as Abraham's temporary home. Later biblical passages list Haran among some cities and lands subjugated by Assyrian rulers and among Tyr's trading partners. Mm-hmm. So, going back to what I was saying before, the second I see the word Hurrian, I've done extensive research on the Hurrians due to the fact that between them, the Mitanni, and I can't remember offhand, I want to say the Sabarians on top of it as well, had used deities from the Vedic texts within varied treaties that were made back and forth within horse riding, chariot riding texts, training texts that they used. It becomes very important because you start to understand the vastness of the beginnings of the major people groups that moved out after Genesis 11, after the Tower of Babel, as you see them move into different directions. So much that went on in India that just has not even been touched by a mass majority of mainstream historians because, A, it's been covered up, it's been hidden. The whole concept, when they brought the Aryan invasion theory into the story, it's just completely, for some odd reason, has caused a diversion. Nobody seems to be looking in that direction at what has quite plainly been there the entire time. So India was very important in the scheme of everything. The Indus Valley Civilization, which we've talked about varied times here over the course of several programs. What was going on there in the Indus Valley Civilization is, first off and foremost, the big important thing to understand is they were one of the most prominent and powerful sea traveling and merchant places in one of the earliest pieces in time in history. And, this is where we slide back around to what I was talking about concerning Sabians of Yemen. Now, I've been able to trace beyond any shadow of a doubt now that when we look at the biblical Sheba, as in the Queen of the South, the Queen of Sheba, you can trace that line directly down to the Indus Valley Civilization, which is where the trade routes were set up. That we turn around on top of it, we see mentioned right in the same chapter in the Bible where the Queen of Sheba comes in. See that the ships of Tarshish had traveled to Ophir. Well, Ophir is the Egyptian. They like to use the term Coptic, so I'll stick with what the historians call it. But nonetheless, the Egyptian term for Ophir has always been India. And when those ships were sent down from Tarshish, they went down to Ophir, which was down in the southern portion where the Indus Valley Civilization was. They went up, got what they needed. Well, then they began to travel somewhere else. I mean, folks, you got to stop and think the amount of time that those ships were gone before they came back. Okay, if you were going to just sail down the Red Sea, go down to India, into the ports down there, you're not talking about a 3-year journey. Sea travelers were very advanced from a very early stage of civilization, and that has been one of the most confusing things as far as history goes that has had so much controversy. Has within the academic communities, they go into a tizzy if anybody even dares present the fact that there were people that were traveling across the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean, whichever route they deem necessary to take, to come to what we would refer to as the Americas, or as they would call it, the New World. That's not really how... They can call it the New World all they want. The Americas were known about since ages past. And I have strongly contended for a very long time that when Sheba showed up, and she showed up with the gifts, that on top of it, when you look at what the Magi brought, you have very stark contrast between the two. But nonetheless, I've always contended, due to the fact that see Solomon suddenly sets up, has the ships of Tarshish travel first to Ophir, and then they're on this very long journey before they return. Great American Copper Heist. One of the most baffling things right now to a mass majority of historians here within the United States of America. What they have found in this area repeatedly have been Phoenician scripts, and even one that states blatantly and flat out, ships of Tarshish. There is a very humongous copper deposit that is, I want to say it's a place called Royal Islands. It's up north of Michigan within the lakes and so forth there. And what they found there was a massive, massive amount of one of the most pure coppers that we have in the world was taken out of there somewhere around 1000 BC. And there is yet, to this day, no explanation for this. The people living on the American soil, they would refer to the Native American people, here within the North American continent itself, they have rarely found copper implements. Now, the copper implements they did find, though, this is where you begin to look at some of these tablets, some of this artwork on these pieces. Well, they're quite literally mind-blowing, but you take things even further, recognize the patterns on them quite quickly. You can see this continuity, this continued stream of contact with the continent of the Americas going back from time immemorial. And as I was pointing out, I have contended for so long that when Sheba showed up, she also brought with her the maps of the trade routes, in which the Indus civilization themselves, they had been coming to the Americas for a very long time. Maybe to really catch some people off guard, not to even mention quite thoroughly drive this home. In India, we have a group that is referred to as the Maya Sura. That was one of the case systems. They were also known as the builder caste. But taking this even further, and what is referred to as today as the Tamil Nadu, this is where Tamil is, and that whole, the Tamil Nadu civilization, they still have within their possession a text that's called a treatise on Mayan astronomy because it was made by the Mayan people civilization. In this text, it is quite literally, well, it's hard reading. There's a lot of things being translated from their native language into the American language, not to mention on top of it, trying to keep everything clear as to what each thing represents and memorize and go forward is very difficult. Nonetheless, right there in their text, they go into the very specific details of the astronomy related that they understand and how it was completely connected in with the measure of the planet. And this document goes into further point out the varied latitudes and longitudes. Then on top of it stops midstream, and right there in the heart of the Mayan civilization was in Mexico. Well, that's the one major measuring point. Where this gets interesting, and this was something that has always baffled me until I put two and two together on it. We, back in December 21st of 2012, that infamous day, we did a broadcast concerning the work of, I want to say it's Herb Rowe. And he ended up coming up with a different measuring system than what was the typical measuring system associated with, well, the measure of buildings. We want to go with, today, we go between feet, inches, meters, etc., and then, or they use the metric system. But nonetheless, you had the standard cubit that, they have designated as this, well, this has to be the standard measure. Herb did something different. He looked at what was going on with the measurements in Matthew, can you remember offhand exactly where that was again? Chichen Itza is no, not Chichen Itza.
No. Uh, Teotihuacan.
Yes, Teotihuacan.
Yep.
Exactly. And he sat down and looked at the ratios in accordance with how each piece of these temples, these buildings were laid out, how they connected themselves on top of it with the astronomy, because each one of these places represented varied planets, varied distances. Once again, it was an on the ground representation of the heavens above, no different than what we have going on in Egypt. Now, what Herb did is he sat down, he looked at these measurements, looked at the ratio of what was going on. He came up with a new measuring system. And this new measuring system, on top of it, each and every single number incorporated all of these numbers that we just spoke of previous to this. 216, as in 2160. 32, 144. Once again, all of these numbers encoded right in there. Matthew just showed you that illustration, how the measure of the planet works in accordance with this. And as I had brought up previously, these are also the very exact same measures that are used in the astronomical measuring of the precession, what they would refer to as the precession of the equinoxes. They are the exact same numbers. Then you walk into that infamous statement of as above, so below. So what Herb found here with the way he redid these measures, which altered and differed from their standard, whatever kind of cubit measure system they were trying to use, how it varied from different portions in the world, and so forth. Why he used this measuring system and why it makes sense is actually quite well explained in this Ancient Indus Civilization document, as that those measures of these buildings, of these layouts, they change per latitude and longitude. Depending on how far north something is, it is obviously going to go to a smaller size than as if it was at TNO map, or the direct center at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. As you move latitude and longitude, these measures and these ratios also were going to change. Now, this becomes very important on top of it in the context of sea travel, because you had to have a 100% accurate understanding of A, heavens above, how it is that they would move, and this is where the measuring of these equinoxes and all of this comes into the equation, because obviously you've got shifting within the stars in a certain set pattern in time. With ancient sea travel, you also had to have an absolute and correct understanding of these changes of measurements as you move throughout the sea to plot your course. If you look into the Pacific groups within the civilizations there, I can't remember offhand what this is. This is all sort of impromptu. I'm not really absolutely prepared on this level. It's the Polynesians now that I remember it. If you look into what they've preserved handed down to them from ancient times, the way that they were able to travel throughout the Pacific and jump from island to island to island by memorizing the stars, by memorizing their placements, by memorizing where you had to go with what star to stay on course to get to the next set plot line in your destination, they still are able to do this today. The training is still passed on from one to another. And it's just alone through understanding the travel through the Pacific and coming up and hopping from island to island to island like that, and then coming to the Americas, they have documented beyond any shadow of a doubt, you see these same types of structures, the same types of symbolic things, be it religious things, be it astronomical things, whatever that it may be, they see these same things plotted all the way up these Pacific islands. So now this all begins to wrap around in going straight back to the crux as far as what we're speaking of when we talk about the Magi. It is very well known, very well documented that, look, they were master astronomers. They knew what sign to look for before they showed up in Israel at the time of the birth of Messiah. What we also have to realize on top of this as well is not only were they master astronomers, they were also master navigators, geographers, builders. This goes for days. Hop in here, Matthew, because I just unloaded a lot of things I didn't even plan on unloading, but it just came out.
Just kind of came out, huh? Well, that's kind of what we're doing, Bry. We're just kind of shooting from the hip, aren't we? Yeah, you unloaded a. Whew, you struck oil. Let's say that. You got a gusher. Lots of stuff jammed into, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes there, buddy. It's mind-boggling, ladies and gentlemen. It really is what the Bible source code contains. And even history itself. A reckoning and understanding of time and dimensions. It literally has everything in it. It's completely amazing to me. So, as we get into this crux of time, it's important that we start talking about important things. So I know we've rapid fired a bunch of sound bites, what they're generally called today, but with Brian and I, it's kind of like deer slugs, is what it is, straight out of the barrel of a 12-gauge shotgun. So we're sorry about that. I know we've covered a lot of topics tonight, and I'm deadbeat tired. I'm ready literally to fall over. I keep yawning. That's why I keep switching the video off. Now that I said that, excuse me, I've been ran ragged this week. You can take any of these things that Brian and I have said and go back and find all kinds of resources to them. You can find us on iTunes, of course. The Prophetico's over there a couple of times. We got 2 stations over there. And we've also got the Portico of Solomon over there. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, please forgive me. We've also got my website, the BibleSourceCode.com, and Brian's website. So we have all kinds of resources that you can go back and literally find us talking about these things hundreds of different times. But you see the importance of what he found there at Teotihuacan. He simply realized that there was a pattern in the distances that was given. So he made up a yardstick for it. And it works in any of the field sites. So literally, I'm going to tell you something that's going to really rattle your cage. And I've avoided this. Okay? But I've started throwing out tidbits to it. You have to understand something, ladies and gentlemen. 666 is technically not bad. That is the measure of a man. Okay? And you already know that has everything to do with the nautical mile. There's exactly 50 of those in 1 degree upon the circle of the Earth. Oh my goodness, please forgive me. Don't you realize that what Brian just described to you was now you can know the measure of a man? He figured out the key critical increment you were looking for. So I've been throwing out hints to that here for, I don't know, past couple of shows that I've did. I'm trying to get over my yawning is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get over my yawning. What I'm trying to relay is this, is that the name of the beast also equates to 666. Now, it is bad that he brands people with his name. That's what he's doing. He's giving you a brand, literally like a cattle brand. He's giving you a mark, his logo, so to speak. Yes, that's bad, but the simple fact that 666 is the measure of a man, ladies and gentlemen, God's telling you that for a reason. Now we've had the answer to the incremental usage of the measure of a man since he done this, since he figured out, since he did all the measurements there at Teotihuacan. Now we can actually figure out quite a lot of things incrementally with time and distance. Now I hope we at least relayed that to you tonight adequately. That you think time is based upon how fast the second hand revolves around your pretty little watch. No, it don't. No, it does not. It is actually based on dimensions. So, with that in mind, I'm sorry I haven't got to answer some of the questions that were sent to the Brian and I in correspondence. Brian, I'm dead tired. I can barely set up for Pete's
I
sake.
can altogether relate with you on that one. I've been working
But
for a solid week on this software and have hit some very frustrating portions, and there's still obviously got to be tweaking done here, but it's altogether the tweaking of it's the infamous, folks. I mean, in order to do a video properly, if we were in the same room, it'd be 10 times easier, but we've got to pipe video in from, somewhere else in the world, and it's adding in all kinds of extended entertainment as we deal with, the limited programs for video chat that we have out there. It's just making the whole thing even more entertaining. So we're going to be, as you can see, I've been tweaking things as we've been going, trying to resize things to see if this fixes the streams. Just going to have to see what happens here. I mean, it's a process. These will get better as for the first couple of Hangout videos we did. It was rather surprising at how many views we had. I'd like to thank everybody for coming in and viewing. I did not expect that, especially when the first one was called Monkeys, for crying out loud. But
yeah, that's good stuff, man. Well,
man, oh man, yeah.
Hey, how many other Christian broadcasts can you hear anybody bring up the monkeys or the peacocks? I mean, where else are you going to go? At the end of the road, you're going to be forced to look up and see the Prophetico. It's pretty well that simple. By the way, here, let me throw some tidbits at you, ladies and gentlemen. I decided to stop and take a look at the Nordics and the Aryans and this strange idea that the Aryans are obviously, Brian has proved they were there in India. Um, obviously, Hitler was going after them. Hitler knew something. But more importantly, uh, is that encoded in the Bible? Yes, it is. I wasn't expecting to find it, but boy, it just kind of hit me right in the face when I found it. There, the place, the particular stanza, talking about. Oh, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. The stanza talking about Ephraim, and then it goes on to mention that they're going to go up to the temple of On, the same deity, of course, that Joseph's wife, Joseph's father-in-law, was a priest of. Right there is also in the Greek Nordic, whether you like it or not. So anyway, I'm not going to tell you the verse. You can figure that all out for yourself. But the Brian and I may do something on that. We need to do a proper rendering of everything that is there laid out in Detroit. What that could possibly have meant, why they displayed the image of the beast there in Detroit, because they did, whether you like it or not, that is the scapegoat, and everybody knows it. So, did the 1,290 days begin July 25th? I don't know. I wish I did. I know that I hope that it did. Does that rattle your cage? I don't belong here. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. I don't belong here. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I had better go to sleep before I wind up crashing out here in the cold in my garage. I'm just, Bri, we got to kill this before you kill me, buddy.
I hear you on that. Everybody, this is just, they're sort of impromptu, improv. Don't really know where we're going with these last few episodes, so to say, because it's just more or less we are still in this testing phase. Hopefully, we are getting things ironed out here the further we go along, and I'm hoping that things are going to look a lot better here over the course of time. So we're just going to have to see how this works out. But I think it is now time to end this broadcast, and everybody for tuning in again. See you soon. God bless.